Welcome back to the High Road. We have put together another fantastic show for you. Serena, what are the serious topics we're talking about today?
You know, later we'll be talking to a young woman who nearly took her own life as an unwed teen mom until the Child Abuse Prevention Center stepped in.
But first, you'll meet representatives from the National Alliance for Mental Illness in Orange County, California. Both guests have walked a mile in the shoes of the very people they help. I promise you, this is going to be a powerful segment that you won't want to miss. Let's start with the lighter side.
Sounds great.
Great question. How many Democrats does it take to change a light bulb? 6. 1 to do all the twisting. An ACORN member to ensure that the right person changed the bulb. Al Gore to ensure it's CFL. An EPA agent in case the bulb breaks and a mercury cleanup is necessary. An injury attorney to bail out the homeowner. And a member of the media to celebrate the change. California versus Texas. One is pro-business and growth. The other, well, not so much. Here's California's solution to a coyote problem. The governor of California is jogging with a dog along a nature trail. A coyote jumps out and attacks the governor's dog, then bites the governor. Here's the bill. Animal control, $200 for rabies testing and $500 for relocating the coyote. Veterinarian, $200 for testing the dead dog. Governor's hospital bill, $3,500. California Fish and Game Department, $100,000 survey to make sure the area is now free of dangerous animals. $50,000 to implement a coyote awareness program for residents of the area. State of California, $2 million to study how to better treat rabies. And to top it off, PETA protests the coyote's relocation and files a $5 million suit against the state. Texas coyote solution. The governor of Texas is jogging with his dog along a nature trail. A coyote jumps out and tries to attack him and his dog. The governor shoots the coyote with his state-issued pistol and keeps jogging. The governor spent 50 cents on a .38 caliber hollow point cartridge. Buzzards ate the dead coyote. And that, my friends, is why California is broke and Texas is not. I live in California. This is absolutely true. And besides, what do they say? Don't mess with Texas? With Nancy Pelosi re-elected the new House Minority Leader, she was smiling from ear to ear. Now, some within her party questioned the authenticity of her happiness, so to assuage their doubts, she ate a banana sideways. We'll be right back after this.
If you have stage 1 cancer and it's caught, doctors treat it, you recover, and everyone celebrates. Plus, insurance companies approve full payment for the bill. But if you're diagnosed with mental illness early on, little treatment is available from doctors, insurance, or society. You're on your own. That is until you shoot 20 first graders like in the Sandy Hook attack, or simply end your own misery with sleeping pills or a gun. You see, like cancer, mental illness only gets worse without treatment. Steve Pitman and his granddaughter Melissa from Nami, National Alliance of Mental Illness of Orange County, California, are here to share their stories. Thank you so much for joining us on the High Road. Let's start with you, Steve. Tell us about the story about your brother.
My brother lived with serious mental illness for nearly 50 years and without complaint. He died a little over 2 years ago after 6 weeks in the hospital. In his hospital room, he had no balloons, he had no cards, he had no flowers, and he had but 3 visitors. He had me, he had my mother who flew out from Indianapolis, and he had a daughter he hadn't seen in 20 years. That is not the life we would want for anyone we love. He certainly didn't want it for himself, but that's the life he lived.
That's so sad. The alienation and the isolation. Did they make you feel like you were a part of it, or how did that work?
The family was blamed from the beginning. These were character defects on his part. It was inappropriate mothering on the part of my mother. My father was too demanding. We had a dysfunctional family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is a family where both parents are ministers.
Oh my. Well, you know, I ask this because I just don't know. How extensive is mental illness in society?
Mental illness is quite extensive. People, I don't know what to say.
26.2% of the population will have a diagnosable mental illness this year. Not just Orange County, not just California, not just the United States. Go anywhere in the world, 26.2%.
Over a quarter of the, wow, wow.
That's amazing. So is there a stigma that's attached with mental illness?
Stigma is involved in mental illness because nobody wants to have it. And people think of mental illness as the person in the corner with drooling, or the homeless person on the street sleeping in a tent. And nobody sees it as the person next door or your neighbor or your coworker, when that's what it really is mental illness is not, doesn't discriminate.
So would it be fair to say that there is a reasonable amount of shame that's associated for the person who is battling this mental illness?
Definitely.
50% of the people with a diagnosable mental illness will never seek treatment.
Well, okay,
wow.
why are people not getting help until it's too late?
Part of it is because the system is reluctant to give help, but part of it is that there's so much stigma involved. Why on earth would you cop to having a mental illness? You wouldn't, because of the stigma that's associated with it. A crazy person that lives next door, you don't want that for yourself. You don't want it for family members. So instead of seeking treatment, which can have a profound impact on the course of the illness, we avoid treatment.
How is Nami helping people with this issue?
Well, the answer is that we have an underutilized resource that will help every single mental health problem there is, and that is the family. The family is willing to provide this support for free. They're not even going to charge anyone to help. They love this person, and just the analogy used at the beginning of cancer, the family is embraced as part of the healing process. You need the support of your family, the people you love, in order to get better. But in mental illness, your family will be excluded almost immediately. I mean, we have visitation in hours in a hospital for something like cancer. You can have 20 people in your room. But in a mental health ward, never, ever, ever happen. Maybe one at a time for an hour max, because we treat it differently. We continue to blame families for something that is a biological disorder of the brain, and it's completely counterproductive.
Do you think we could take a step back to the universities and where they're teaching psychology and psychiatry? And is there something there that they could learn from the family unit and how families can help the healing process?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It starts at the beginning.
Glad to hear that, and thank you so much for all the work that you do, Steve and Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guess what, guys? There is hope. Healing can come through community and men and women like Steve and Melissa and organizations like Nami. Later, we're talking about teen suicide with Child Abuse Prevention Center in Southern California. Stay tuned for more on The High Road.
I'm Dr. Drake, and it's time to cut the nonsense. Global warming. I'm not making this up. Our Secretary of State, John Kerry, recently said this: when you think about terrorism, which we think about a lot today, poverty, which is linked obviously to the levels of terror that we see in the world today, and of course, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, all of these are challenges that don't know any borders. And that's exactly what climate change is. I can't get over the willful ignorance of this White House and cabinet. Climate change is one of the biggest hoaxes of all time, and I'm going to prove it now by way of 5 factors. 1, there hasn't been any global warming since 1997. That's right. The temperature of the planet has been flat since 1997. Even the former director of the Climate Research Unit, Phil Jones, admits this. The planet was cooling from 1940 to 1975, 35 years, and the upswing in temperature only lasted 22 years to 97. Now, an 18-year pause is a stark memo. It begs the obvious question, how can we be experiencing global warming if there's no actual global warming? There's no scientific consensus that global warming is occurring, nor caused by man. Questions aren't decided by consensus. In fact, many scientific theories that were widely believed to be true were made irrelevant by new evidence. And here's one example. In the early 1970s, scientists believed global cooling was occurring. However, once the planet started to warm, they changed their minds. Yet the primary scientific argument for global warming is that there's a scientific consensus that it's occurring. Setting aside the fact that there's not a scientific argument, over 31,000 scientists have signed on to a petition saying humans are not causing global warming. More than 1,000 scientists signed on to another report saying there is no global warming at all. Here are tens of thousands of well-educated mainstream scientists who don't agree that global warming is occurring. Arctic ice is up 50% since 2012. One study revealed well over 1 million cubic miles of new ice these last 30 months. The loss of Arctic ice has been a big talking point for people who believe global warming is occurring. Now, how much Arctic ice does matter and is an open discussion with morphing results. But there is more Arctic ice than 30 years ago. Some even reached Houston, Texas last winter. 4, climate models showing global warming have been repeatedly wrong. These future projections of what global warming will do to the planet have been based on climate models. Scientists make assumptions, and they guess how much of a change there will be, and then they project changes over time. Unfortunately, almost all of these models showing huge temperature gains have turned out to be outright wrong. And finally, predictions about the impact of global warming have already been proven wrong. The debate over global warming has been going on long enough that we've had time to see whether some of these predictions people made have panned out in the real world. Al Gore predicted all the Arctic ice would be gone by 2013. In 2005, The Independent ran an article saying that the Arctic had entered a death spiral. Meanwhile, the Arctic ice has grown. James Hansen of NASA predicted that the West Side Highway in New York City would be underwater by now. It is more scientific to reject hasty action based on faulty data. Further study of the issue could be done, and then the issues could be shared with what's really happening with world temperatures. That would require that we cut the nonsense. Send your thoughts to feedback@thehighroadshow.com.
Teen suicide is on the rise. Even kids coming from good families are committing suicide at an alarming rate. The #1 contributing factor? Child abuse. And it's not always adults. Who is abusing teens? Bullies. With high-tech access, bullies stalk and attack their peers via smartphone and social media. It's virtual abuse and it's everywhere. We've invited a panel from the Child Abuse Prevention Center to come discuss how you can help stop this abuse because it kills. We have Executive Director Scott Trotter along with Jessica Dihn, an educator at the center, plus board member and advocate Roxanne Day. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you for having us.
So glad to have you here. So is it really possible that my child is a potential for committing suicide? I mean, I feel like I'm a decent parent. Is it still possible?
Well, of course, even if you are a great parent. Look, our job as parents is to build life lessons into kids so that they're resilient and adaptive when challenges come up. Anything can get in the way of those lessons, and when they do, as a teenager faces big life challenges, they can respond in ways that harm themselves or harm others, like Sandy Hook or Columbine, if it's really exaggerated. So you can't control everything as a parent. We look at those things that happen to kids that disrupt those lessons, and really focus in on child abuse. Bullying can also be one of those features. And I think, you know, Roxanne, you've experienced the effects of child abuse as well.
Yeah, Roxanne, tell us a little bit about your story.
I was abused as a child, and what that causes, it causes you to isolate yourself. You don't really have any friends. You isolate yourself from parents, from groups, and you spend a lot of time alone, which leaves yourself even more ripe for bullying. And yeah, it's not something that's talked about a lot, but it's growing more and more. And it's scary as a child when you feel so alone and you feel there's no other choice but to hurt yourself, or they just feel that there's no hope in life. It's heartbreaking and scary as a child.
Yeah, definitely, especially when you're isolated and you feel like you can't talk about it. Jessica, is that somewhat like your story?
Yeah, definitely. For me, when I was faced with this unplanned pregnancy as a teen, I felt like I had nobody to talk to. As a child, I was also abused, and so I didn't really have trust in anybody, and so feeling like I couldn't rely on anybody, felt like I could potentially put my child in this situation as well, raise him the way that I was raised. I was definitely very terrified. And so for me, I thought the best way was to commit suicide.
Wow. But then something happened and you decided not to do that.
Yes.
And was the Child Abuse or Prevention Center part of that?
Part of it, yes. For me, the Child Abuse Prevention Center gave me something that nobody else could, and that was hope. And so with this hope, I was able to get the therapy that I needed, surround myself with a large support system, and continue to get support over the past few years so I could get over the thoughts of committing suicide and everything and be a good mother towards my son.
Wow. So what are some concrete steps that you can share with our parents that are watching this about their kids? What can they do to eliminate or negate this bullying?
Well, if you're a great parent, keep being a great parent, right?
Yeah.
And to do that, remember, ask and listen, right, rather than tell. And being aware of what your children's behavior is and noticing it and spending the time to really listen to what they're doing will start to throw up cues of these kinds of things that they could be getting in the way of these life lessons of resiliency. So first, connect with your child, but connect in a way that allows you to listen and see how they're developing their self-sufficiency. You'll know about it. And if you're in over your head and you don't know how to connect with your child, there are all kinds of resources in the community. Some of them are friends and family and right next door.
That's great. What is your number one, for each of you, what's your number one tip for regaining hope after the abuse?
For me, I think it's just, living by example. And for me, I was blessed to have an incredible mom, and that was my hope, and grandmother. They were my rock.
Oh, that's
And
excellent.
so
And Jessica, what about you?
For me is just to be a good role model to my son and show him that, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you go to the right places and be with the right people, then your life could be it would be in the right place.
Excellent. So it sounds like it takes a community to help us through abuse. Thank you so much for joining us on the high road. So shame compounded by isolation and silence kills vulnerable teens who believe there's no way out of abuse. It's for important shows just like this that we bring you the high road each week. This organization, Child Abuse Prevention Center, is bringing healing to families, children, and our culture.
I'm Melissa Nunnally, and we are back on Global Connections, where we solve the world's problems in just 3 minutes or less. Today's topic, the ordinal ranking of nations. Check out this map. It shows where each country ranks on this model. The green color indicates the countries classified as first world countries. Yellow shows the second world, and red shows the third world nations. Drake and Serena, do you think that this model is an accurate representation of the world?
Well, we joke about first world problems. My automatic electronic coffee maker overboiled.
Hate that. Yeah, no kidding.
Second world, what is that anymore? I've worked a lot in the third world.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
to make of this
some
yet.
of it seems somewhat ambiguous because a lot of those third world countries that are listed there are wealthy. So how does that work into it? I mean, is it simply the government ideology or what's going on?
And how often does it change, I wonder, too?
Yeah, exactly.
There's change. I mean, I have no doubt that we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. I mean, the inventions, the life, it's just the way it is.
I feel so blessed living here. I mean, it was your favorite president, Ronald Reagan, who said our country is like a shining city on a hill. And definitely feel blessed.
Yes, it definitely is. But do you think that we could actually learn something from other countries?
Absolutely.
Oh, we always have.
Yeah, I mean, we're a melting pot of ideas, and we haven't stopped. I mean, we definitely search out for new ways to do things, and we've traveled a lot, and we've seen that ourselves.
Give me some examples of what you've seen that we could do better in.
Well, definitely education. One of the things that we saw was that our students are not performing as good as they could be, and one of those is mathematics, where we rank 24th, and this is behind some of the developing countries.
Wow.
Yeah, and well, like in infant mortality, and my mother's she delivered babies for all these years, 50 years or so. We're 37th in the world with infant mortality.
How could that even possibly
that
be?
seems very shocking.
Yeah.
Come on, can we do better? Come on,
Yeah.
There definitely seems to be some room for improvement. You think we're just too distracted?
Yeah, that could be. I mean, I think we could be focusing on some things rather than focusing on, Kim Kardashian. Would say,
we talk about the pursuit of happiness that's in some of our founding documents. This is weird, but some big survey, we're listed 15th in the world for being a satisfied population. 14 countries say, we're happier.
Yeah, pursuit of happiness. It doesn't seem to be happening that much.
Maybe we need to travel to those areas and find out what's making them happy.
Yeah, what's making them happy out there. And the thing that probably disturbs me the most is there's some in our country who would want to take our country from being green to yellow.
Yeah, we definitely don't need that.
Yeah, why, I mean, we are a first world country now, have been for over a century, but we can improve.
Definitely.
And that's a lot of our point.
All right, thank you guys, and thank you for watching. We want to hear from you. Send us your questions and comments to feedback@thehighroadshow.com.
We had some heavy topics on the show today.
I agree, but I feel it's necessary to talk about them and help people to be informed.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like we just scratched the surface of the topics we covered. I would like to share some more of these things on the website.
And that sounds like a great idea. Can people leave comments on the website?
Definitely. Or they can email us at feedback@thehighroadshow.com.
Thanks for joining us. Next time we will meet Joe and Renee Dallas and talk about their journey. We can't wait to see you again on The High Road.